Am I good? Good evening, everybody. Without further ado, I will reopen this meeting of the Bristol Warren Regional School Committee. It is Monday, April 17th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on our agenda is public comment. I have 2 people signed up for public comment. Just a quick reminder, we have 3 minutes per speaker. We do encourage people to speak to items that are on the agenda. That way, as school committee members, we can respond, but it is your time. If you speak about something off the agenda, we will not be able to respond, unfortunately. The first person to sign up is Bill Odell. Mr. Odell?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. My name is Bill Odell, 26 Cedar Drive in Bristol, and I come actually representing Mount Hope Church, who rents the Colt Auditorium on Sunday mornings because we have yet to find a building that we can transform into our own church. And I'd like to mention one thing about the Colt Auditorium to you this evening. The reason I'm coming to you now is because I tried coming to the Budget Facility Subcommittee, but I found out you don't actually have one. So that's why I'm here this evening. Anyway, the church that meets in the Colt Auditorium, if you walk into the Colt Auditorium, which was marvelously rehabbed a number of years ago, by the way, you go up under the balcony, and there's this wonderful lighting. It's the energy efficient, bright, warm lighting under the balcony. You go up above on the balcony, same kind of lighting. When you walk in to the main area in front of the stage of that auditorium, the lighting is frankly, it's dark, it's dingy, most of it is missing. I counted it Sunday, I counted 86 light fixtures up there. Of the 86 light fixtures, 28 of them actually work. 58 of them don't work, which means 2/3 of the lighting in an auditorium are not working. The 26 lights that do work are the old-fashioned, dull, dingy, costs a lot to operate, incandescent light bulbs. Okay, it's very dark, it's very dingy, it's very unwelcoming in there. And so I come to you representing Mount Hope Church, and we would like to make a proposal to you folks that we are willing to buy the light bulbs, providing they're not astronomical in cost. We're a small church, we don't have too much money, but we're willing to buy light bulbs and purchase them and give them to the Colt Andrews campus. But in exchange, you're going to have to install the bulbs. What makes it difficult, quite frankly, is the bulbs are 2 stories up. It's hard to reach. In this past summer, you had pipe staging up there on wheels. I went up to the guys, and you were fixing the ceiling. Ceiling was collapsing, and you're fixing the ceiling. And I said, hey guys, while you're fixing the ceiling, and while the seats are ripped out, take that pipe staging, and as you wheel it across to fix what's broken on the ceiling, change the light bulbs out. It's a wonderful opportunity. Well, opportunity lost, they didn't do it. But anyway, that's our proposal. That's why I'm here for you tonight. We would love to do that for you. Candidly, it's a self-serving gift. I mean, we're going to benefit on Sunday mornings by it, but so will everyone else. The building is used by the students, is used by the town council, and I think it would be a wonderful thing to do for that facility. Again, it's been rehabbed. It looks wonderful, with the exception of you can now raise mushrooms on the stage. And I would ask that you would kindly look into that matter. And I realize you can't comment because it's not on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Odell.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next, I'm just resetting my timer, I'm sorry. The next person that we have up for public comment is Susan Moratini.
Hi. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Susan Moratini, and I live on 46 Highland Road in Bristol. Grew up in Warren, went through Warren Public Schools, and my mother taught in Warren, so I have a lot of history here. I currently live in Bristol, and I've been there for 30 years. And I'm here to support the secure storage resolution. I think it's a wonderful idea, especially for the whole community, not just the schools, but the whole community. And I'm an advocate for Be Smart, and Be Smart is a program founded by Everytown after the Sandy Hook massacre. And this is our logo. And basically, we are for securing guns, modeling responsible behavior, asking others about presence of guns in their homes, recognizing the risk of suicide, especially in teenagers, and to tell other people about how to be smart. Storing firearms securely protects children and adults by preventing unintentional shootings and gun suicides. By educating parents, guardians, and a whole community that firearms should be stored locked, unloaded, separate from ammunition, our school district can help prevent access to guns and save lives. Currently, 4.6 million children in the US live in a household with at least one unlocked and loaded firearm. 80% of school shooters under the age of 18 got their gun from their home or the home of friends or relatives. Every year, nearly 350 children under the age of 18 unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else. Guns are now the #1 cause of death in children. And that's about all I have to say. It's pretty self-evident that securing guns is very, very important, and educating the community is even more important. And I do want to say that I was just at the State House because currently testimony is being heard in the House about gun sense legislation. And first I want to say that Chief Lynch was there and he testified in favor of the secure storage legislation. And also something that I really struck me is a Vietnam veteran was testifying in favor of secure storage. And he ended by saying, "It is easier to child-proof your weapon than to bulletproof your child." Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Spot on. Thank you. Now on to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the school committee and will be enacted by one motion. Is there anything that any school committee member would like to pull from consent?
Yes, I would like to get to Madam Chair, but first
Mrs. McBride.
I would like to make a request. As I was going through all these policies and all the rest of it, I would appreciate it if it was possible for the entire school committee to get minutes of the subcommittee meeting, simply so that we can see what's discussed during the meeting. We used to get them. Is this working? Mm-hmm. We used to get them. We don't get them anymore, and I would appreciate it very much if you would consider just passing them out to us after they're okay by the subcommittee itself. Please.
Yeah, the problem is that these won't have been approved by the subcommittee yet.
I recognize
Yeah,
that.
but when they are,
I'm saying
absolutely.
Going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
In our, at least once a month, our package should have the minutes from the policy.
Absolutely. Yep.
And budget. I don't expect to see the minutes from personnel unless you have something that's not an
In public.
executive.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks.
Just to be clear, the minutes from those meetings are votes only.
There's no detail, okay.
Madam Chair, I would like to pull a couple things from consent. I would like to pull H, I, and M as in Mary.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mrs. Thibodeau.
I'd like to pull C, K, and L, please.
Okay. The entirety of C?
No, specifically C5.
Okay. So if everybody's in agreement, as we go into discussion and action, I will move the policy items to the beginning, and I'll put the contract item with the other contract items at the end to keep us organized. Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the items that have been removed?
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Yes, I am, because I'm voting no on the homeschool request. It's awfully late in the year to be asking to homeschool.
Noted. Thank you. Now on to discussion and action items. Can I please have a motion to approve and seal the minutes of the executive session? A second? Anyone second? All in favor?
Aye.
Item B on the agenda is the standard monthly financial reports, items 1, 2, and 3, the cash disbursements, monthly financial report with variance analysis, and the budget transfer report. This is an item for discussion only. Anybody have questions or discussion?
And I'm looking forward to not doing these anymore. Can I just say that?
Actually, I do have one question.
Yes.
So, and hopefully it will be much sooner or much easier next time, but can we get the projected, what is the projected budget shortfall at the current moment?
You got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mrs. Thibodeau. Any other discussion on those reports? Great, thank you. Now we will jump back to the first policy that was pulled. So can I have a motion to review, recode, and rename policy IND, INDA, school ceremonies, observances, patriotic exercises, to policy IMD, school ceremonies and observances, as recommended by the policy subcommittee?
So moved. Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Mark. I was at the policy meeting, but I had to leave a little early, so I apologize for having the policy subcommittee reiterate. I just wanted to know why patriotic exercises was scratched out. Why would you like to remove the verbiage?
So if you remember, the reason we're renaming and recoding is we're going to the appropriate naming of all of these. So there's actually a different policy that addresses patriotic exercises. It's IMDA. So we're just naming it what it's supposed to be named in accordance with the national policy books.
Okay, so just like the coding, there's a
Right,
national
so
code.
so
this is
that,
a national-
but what IMD is just called school ceremonies and observances, and then there's another policy called IMDA, that's patriotic exercises.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye. Anyone opposed? Great, that motion has carried. Now we'll jump to item I of the consent agenda. Can I please have a motion to approve the removal of policy HF, superintendent role in negotiations, as recommended by the policy subcommittee?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I don't understand why we're removing this.
It's not policy, it's just process. If you read it, it says, under the terms of the contract, that's not policy
Right,
work.
so you
that's-
take out that under, we've always had the option of using the superintendent to negotiate contracts or not. The part where it talks about BWEA and Council 94 and referring to those contracts doesn't really belong there, you're right. But I still think that the policy itself belongs in there because you do have the option. The school committee negotiates contracts.
Mhm.
I've never seen a contract negotiated without the superintendent really sort of running the show. But the fact remains that it stays under us. So I would rather see it modified to take the contract language out than just eliminate the policy altogether.
Well, this says the superintendent doesn't negotiate.
No, it says Unless, at the end, it says unless the school committee.
It says we'd be limited to guiding the committee as its consultant and/or presenter.
Correct.
Again,
That's what we do.
so why we're removing this is process, not policy, and every school committee should decide during that time what they want to do and how they want to guide those negotiations, and that could vary depending on the committee or even the superintendent. If you had a brand newbie superintendent, you might want to lean on the attorney. So this is just process, not policy. That's why we're removing it, but
No, I just think that it doesn't hurt to have the policy. If you're going to change the wording, I don't have a problem with that either, but I don't think we should remove it until we make the changes that we need to make.
Okay, anybody else? Anyone else? Nope, no other discussion? Oh, yeah.
We're taking it out, and it's going to be set cheap.
no, you're just removing it because this is process, not policy.
Okay.
If you take it out, you have no policy on it.
That's right. And this,
You as a school committee, depending on, well, actually, the negotiating committee would determine the role of the superintendent in negotiations.
well,
But that
we,
says that.
as a process of the school committee, isn't that what a policy is?
No.
Yes. We follow policy. We have a policy about how we're going to negotiate.
But this
That,
doesn't
that way
match.
to negotiate is a process.
The issue is, Mrs. McBride, that this doesn't match what we've ever done, because this is saying that the superintendent should not have a role in the negotiations.
Actually, I beg to differ with you on that.
It says the superintendent's duties will not include negotiating or arbitrating the contract between the committee and any employee group.
And then it goes on to say that the committee can use the superintendent. We have the right to ask, and we have always asked the superintendent to be part of the negotiations and for the superintendent to bring to the table anybody he or she feels is necessary to help with the negotiations, because we're not in the classroom. I get that. If you want it to reflect that, you can put that in there. Otherwise, I don't think we should be absent a policy about negotiating.
And to be clear, this ends, the superintendent's function will be limited to guiding the committee as its consultant and/or presenter. It
That's
does not
correct,
say-
because,
yeah.
because you as the chair will sign the agreement. So what you're asking the superintendent to do is to come in and give you all the help that you need in order to negotiate that contract from the educational side of the coin. And we're sitting there with the budget side, and we're all working together. So I would prefer to see this policy reworded than just arbitrarily removed and have no policy for contracts.
Understood. Mr. McGovern, you were going to say something? You were asking something?
I understand your point. Are we going to be putting that policy in place as far as HF?
Mm-mm.
Because if you look at HF, the last sentence is the superintendent and director of administration and finance will serve as advisors in the negotiating process.
Yeah,
Are you looking at HC?
no, HF.
HF.
It's one, you go
This is
past
HF.
H. No, it's HC.
This is HC.
HC.
Yeah, HC is a different one.
HC says nothing.
HF is the other one.
Is that the one that just refers to like
Says HF, except I don't have that HF.
HF, the new HF,
Yeah.
the
I
new
have it here,
HF. So if you're eliminating HF here, there is a,
In discussion and action.
at the,
Yeah.
in the
Oh, okay.
discussion action
Yeah.
section.
So that's where you can add it in discussion and action. Thank you.
But to Marge's point, if we drop the policy, aren't we
So-
enacting a new policy for the same thing? And
So we're
In
really not
HE.
dropping the policy, we're really,
Putting
because
it
we're
in
not
the-
dropping
putting it in the envelope.
HF, we're really renaming and revising.
And recoding and revising.
Right. You're right.
Because it says the superintendent will
Well,
not.
right.
Correct.
So we're dropping that part, but what you're talking about, Marge, looks to be
HE.
covered in HE, which is going to be renamed to HF.
sorry.
As long as some people say, I don't have a problem with that, but if you have a brand new superintendent and you're going to turn to somebody else for help. You can't with this new policy. You must use the superintendent. It gives you no leeway in terms of how you decide to negotiate. And I don't know the legal ramifications of it, but I believe that the school committee controls that. So while I understand what you're saying, and while I've never seen a negotiation without the superintendent, and it would be nuts not to have the superintendent there, there's
That
got to
is
be a way to word it so that the school committee can make that decision, and that's why the other policy is written the way it is.
Correct. So we're removing this one because we're not following it at all. And it will be replaced by the one you have in your packet for discussion and action.
The superintendent and the director.
So I think we're arguing over nothing. You have
Correct.
actually revised HF by the new one that's under.
Right.
So you're not removing HF.
Right.
You are revising HF.
Correct.
So it's moved,
Well,
yes.
it's
It
the
doesn't
wrong
say that.
coding.
Yeah.
But again, you have a new HF
Right.
under your discussion and consent.
Right.
The new HF talks about, I think it doesn't matter. Whether you vote on removing HF tonight or not, doesn't matter because you now have a new HF to replace it. So I don't think you need to vote to remove it.
Well, we have to remove this one because it's got the wrong name. That's why we do these in this order. So we're getting rid of HF, which is superintendent's role in negotiations, because that's not a thing. And that we're putting the correct HF in, which was our old HE. So you have to get rid of the old HF. Then we're going to rename the HE, HF with the revisions.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's semantics.
It's semantics.
It's semantics. You really could be just renaming and recoding.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
Right?
So we don't need to take a vote?
However you look at it.
Okay, great.
Even if there's a motion on the table?
Well, there's no more sheet.
Yeah, there is.
There is a
There is a
motion
motion on the table.
Oh, there is a motion. Yes.
So
Right.
can we withdraw the motion?
Yes.
I am removing my motion to remove
HC.
policy H.
Yes.
Withdrawing the motion.
Withdrawing the
Because
motion.
you got a new one. Yes,
Manager.
that makes sense.
Mrs. Almeida?
I just want to make a comment. I originally pulled this from consent because I too read the same one you did, because I couldn't find this in my packet, which I did have. So also my apologies for pulling it, but this, anyway, it'll be discussed, I know, but I just want to make a comment. I accidentally pulled.
Here it is.
Okay, on to the next item that was pulled. Item K from consent. Can I have a motion to approve the removal of policy HC, scope of negotiations, as recommended by the policy subcommittee?
Second.
Discussion. I would just like to give a little background for the members of the public. The reason that we're removing this is because there is no content. It's just
A reference.
a reference. The entire policy is purely a reference to a law.
And I asked for it to be pulled because, again, I wasn't at the policy subcommittee meeting, so I was just trying to understand what's 28-9.3-2? What are those in reference to?
Let's look it up. I will look on the magic of the internet because I don't remember either because we have this meeting. Yeah, it is Rhode Island
It's Ro-
general
it's-
law.
It's the law that allows us to negotiate under.
Yeah, it's just the right to bargain.
That's all.
The
Okay.
right to bargain law.
All right, no, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, all in favor of the motion to remove policy HC?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the next item that was pulled from consent was item L, approve the removal of policy IB, academic freedom, as recommended by the policy subcommittee. Can I have a motion?
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Discussion. Somebody pulled it. It's the same issue. There's no content, just a reference to a general law.
It doesn't even have a law, it just has a note.
It's just a note.
Yes, so I wanted to pull this one and M as well, both basically on the same thing. Though I know that there is nothing written here. I would like to hold it or to keep it, to hold a spot, because I feel that, especially in this time, in this day and age, academic freedom and teaching about controversial issues, those are both policies that I think if we don't have, that maybe we should have. So I would recommend that this one, because we have to speak about this one, would go back to the policy subcommittee and actually look into other policies, other district policies or other community policies that address academic freedom, because we have a lot of parents asking those questions. And even if we just keep it as a placeholder, I didn't even know it existed until it was brought forth, but I have asked about these kinds of policies in the past, so I would like to keep it and probably build on it. Definitely build on it.
Yeah, again, right now it's just the title.
Right now it's just a title.
And a code.
And it appears that it would refer to curriculum, which we don't have any say over.
Actually, I think it refers to computers, doesn't it?
It
The
doesn't
use
refer
of
to
computers.
anything.
Well,
There's
that's,
no
it
content.
says student computer use and internet use is the reference.
And so I think those were created when we started using computers here
Right, there's no
in the
date, actually.
district. And so
It's got nothing, no dates.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No, I understand, and I'm just, but it could have something. There is potential, and whichever, whether it's curriculum-based or it's just policy-based, I feel that it's worth looking into.
Mrs. Reich?
I just was going to comment that for the general public as well, that most policies that we deal with that look like this are things that are required by the law. As far as I'm aware, this isn't anything that's required, an academic freedom policy. Mary Ann, you haven't seen anything like that?
And again, I mean, again, whether you remove it or you don't remove it, it's nothing.
Right.
There's
Right.
nothing here at all.
It's not a
So-
policy.
It's just a title.
Agreed.
It's not a policy.
It's not a
So
policy.
if we wanted to create a policy, we could do that.
It would be a new policy.
It would be a new policy. These aren't even the right
Okay.
names that you would call it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
this
The right
Good stuff.
coding.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not-
Okay,
Okay, so the plan is we continue to vote on this motion, and then if the committee desires, if it is the will of the committee, then we can approach the policy subcommittee about drawing up new policies.
okay.
So can I have a vote on the motion on the floor to approve the removal of policy IB, academic freedom? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Can I have a motion to approve the removal of policy INB, teaching about controversial issues?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? As covered by the previous discussion, I
Yes.
think. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I oppose.
Noted, thank you. Now we will move back to item C on discussion and action. Please, can I have a motion to approve the first reading of GCE, the substitute teacher policy, which combines policies GCE and GCAA, and to remove policy GCAA, substitute teacher policy, as recommended by the policy subcommittee.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item D, please could I have a motion to approve the first reading of new policy JIBB, student member of the school committee, as recommended by the policy subcommittee.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
yes. Go ahead.
Mrs.
I'll
Reed?
be quiet for a minute. Go ahead.
This was something that has been kind of in works and discussion for quite some time. I know that most recently, former school committee member Aaron Schofield has been working on this, and I kind of took it over because I agree. I mean, we are a school district that teaches and is responsible for educating our young people, and I believe that they should have a seat at the table, not a voting seat. They're not elected members of the school committee, but to be able to sit and discuss and have an opportunity to chime in on what they feel is important and required for their education, for them to feel prepared. when they get out of these fine buildings of ours. So I'm actually quite excited about it. It has gone by Michelle King for feedback. And as far as I'm aware, she approves and kind of agrees with the structure of this. And I'm looking forward to having a discussion.
Mrs. McBride.
We already have this process in place. We have grade leaders, grade team people that students elect for freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. And then we have a student council. Student council is elected by the student body. We here, sit here, we're elected by state law. Nobody else should be at this table but us. That's number one. And number two, I don't, excuse me?
Sorry, it was a window that popped up on my screen that was inappropriate, and I was closing it. I wasn't commenting on your
Thank you.
discussion.
Because you say in the policy that this student must be a member of the SIT team. Well, we don't decide who's a member of the SIT team. The principal does. We're not involved with the SIT team. This student may not even be 18, may not even be able to vote. I think that we have a very good process in place with what we have in our schools, with our student government, and I don't think that we need to bring it to this level. Students have shown over and over again when they needed to that they could come and talk about what their concerns were. We have a principal, a vice principal, we have all kinds of people, we have a superintendent. They all reflect to us on what the needs are. And I think that you don't get to be sitting here until you've earned the right to do that. And I don't know who chooses this person. I don't know how it's chosen. I read it, but it's still not acceptable for me.
But it explains that, so you do know if you read it.
No, it doesn't explain to me. It doesn't say who votes for them. It says who talks about them. It says about the school committee designate, right? It talks about
Applications will be reviewed by
the
the
applications
principal
will
and the
be
school
reviewed,
committee
and then who
designee
chooses it?
during the month of April.
So what?
Well, that's telling you who's choosing the representative.
No, it's telling you how you can apply.
No.
It's not telling you who chooses. Anybody can do an application. We've been through this a lot.
Not anybody can do an application. If you read it, it'll go through.
Anybody
the rules
is
of
a
who can do it.
junior, who's a junior and a rising senior
Correct.
can make an application.
That's not
In
anybody.
good standing.
What?
A student in good standing.
Yes, I know that. But we don't need one here, and I'm not going to vote for it. And I don't think it's right because the towns, our two towns, voted for us to sit here and represent the district. And that's what we're supposed to do. And the students have a lot of representation. And certainly in the past, we have gone to schools. We have sat down with them on a monthly basis to ask them what their concerns were. But to put somebody here at this table, I find it's wrong, and it's not done by any other school committee members in this state.
Thank you, Mrs. McBride. Anybody else?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I understand the concept. I have seen it work. I've seen especially during COVID, we had, I remember actually the kids that were on the student government in my office with Zoom meetings trying to figure out how they were going to make their senior year work. And they were working with principals, and I believe they even came to the school committee. What I would like to see, I mean, I understand this policy, but I would like to, I don't know why we're creating something new when we already have something in existence. Why shouldn't we try to use what's already in existence, such as the student government, which is students elected by their peers to represent their peers, which is exactly what we have done as a committee. We were elected by our peers to serve our peers. So that government process already exists, or that structure already exists. They meet on a regular basis. Students on the e-board have the ability to go to the student council and say, these are my concerns. People can take concerns to the student government. Those student government representatives can come to the school committee when there is an issue that they would like to address, or if there is an issue on the agenda that they feel they would like to have input on. I do believe that when you sit at this table, it's kind of an earned item. It's not something that somebody can just apply for and receive permission to be on it. Kids these days feel that when they ask for something, they should immediately get it, that instant gratification, my children included. I think that being in these seats is an earned position. It's an earned right. So I think that by them starting on the other side and actually utilizing, running for office, maybe actually making it more useful, the student government, come up with some issues, deal with those issues, come and present those, make solutions. I would like to see us utilize that existing structure before giving them a seat at this table, and that would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Mrs. Thibodeau. Mrs. Bullard?
I just wanted to clarify that the seat at the table is just a chair. It's not a vote. It's just a seat like any of these seats here and these seats here. It's not a vote. It's not anything that this person will not have some kind of remarkable power. It's an opportunity for a student who is interested to apply and perhaps be chosen to experience something that otherwise they would not. I understand that there's a student government, but they're never here because they're busy. There's e-boards, but they're focused on whatever their particular specialization is. This could be a person who could go back to a student government meeting and say, this is what I saw at school committee. What do you guys think? And then bring back that as a representative. It's not a vote.
I'd rather
Thank
see the Madam Chair, I'd rather see the school send a student to find out what's happening. I'd rather it came from them than from somebody here going back.
Mr. Jackson?
I just want to say I find it mind-numbing that any school committee member up here wants to not hear and build a bridge to the student's voice, one of our biggest stakeholders in the district. Really, it's really mind-boggling. You're just creating a bigger silo that the students already feel to the school committee. So having a non-voting member student sit here and bring issues that we don't know about, that only the students do, and have a space for them to express their issues. I mean, I shouldn't even have to explain anything else more than that. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Mrs. Reich?
I also just wanted to comment too, that while we do have those structures at the high school and at the middle school, as far as student council, again, it's not a policy. It's not something that we hear directly from them. I guess I'm just sort of struck kind of as Mr. Jackson is about why this idea is quite so scary.
I didn't say it was scary. It's not scary to me. It's not necessary.
Thank you, Mrs. Reich. Mrs. Almeida?
I'm not going to reiterate everything, but I do agree with a lot of the points that Ms. Thibodeau said. I also want to say that I don't think it's not wanting to hear the student's voice, because they do have an important voice, and I feel like we all are open to hearing them. However, I know Ms. Bullard said, the processes that are in place, whether it's student council or whatnot, they're not able to come here because they're busy, but yet if we had a member, they would still have to come here. So I don't know how that would work, but like I said, I agree with Tara on most points, and I think what's already in place needs to be maybe better utilized to bring up more issues that the students want to voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Thibodeau?
Yeah, so, Kyle, I do not feel that the students don't deserve a voice, because one of my first statements was, especially during COVID, they were an integral part. When they were graduating the process, the students were an integral part. They took part in the conversations. So I definitely feel, especially at the high school level, to have an opinion or to have a perspective or to be heard is important. I just feel that we actually already have this in place. And why don't we use it? Why don't we make it what it should be? Even if Carly said that sometimes they don't use it the way they should use it, well, why don't we ask them first to do that? Try that first. If that doesn't work, then we come back and we say, we revisit this. But why not use the tools that are already in existence? If it doesn't work, then we come back and we say, all right, that policy didn't work. The kids didn't have time to show up. The kids didn't care enough to discuss the issues that were at hand. We can revisit. But for now, I believe we should try not to create something new, but actually fix something that's already there.
Thank you. I have something to say, and that is that I will be voting for this policy with delight. I am honored anytime that I get to hear from an expert about what it is that we're discussing and what it is that we're going to be voting on. And there is no greater experts than what is going on in our schools than our students. So I would definitely embrace having a student voice at the table. I do also have concerns about students being able to find the time to attend. I have concerns about the onboarding of the students. So much like a school committee member, they know what their role is and isn't, but that's our job, right? That's our job to make sure that the role is clearly defined and that the appropriate student is chosen and onboarded. That's the part that we have control over. I don't understand why we wouldn't try it. And then let's have the humility that if it doesn't work out, let's come back in a year and rediscuss and refocus and be sort of agile enough to make alterations as needed. That's my take on it. Mr. McGovern.
Thank you. I value the voice of the student, and I want to go on record saying that the opinions and the concerns of the student population are very important to myself as a school committee member. I think we can accomplish the goal of listening to the student voice and their opinions without placing a student representative on the school committee. At any time, any student at any grade level can come to the school committee meeting and voice their opinion during public comment. While public comment is more often used when there's a problem, it also can be used when something goes right. And I encourage all students to take that opportunity to come to a school committee meeting and voice your opinion. I assure you that we will be listening. If you're not comfortable sharing your voice publicly, every student can access the school committee via email, and I would encourage you to reach out in that way if you feel more comfortable. Without fully understanding the structure of Mount Hope High School Executive Board and whether or not there is currently a student senate at Mount Hope High School, I would prefer to utilize student leadership selected by the students as opposed to a situation where student leadership is selected by an administrator and a member of the school committee. I would like to learn more about the executive board and student leadership at the high school and how we as a school committee can align ourselves with these student leadership groups. If there are opportunities for an annual meeting, a town hall, a roundtable discussion, or a forum, I'm in full support in participating in these engagements as long as it's permissible. I support the idea of putting a student on the Mount Hope High School school improvement team. I would like to explore the possibility of doing this at Kickapoo Middle School and maybe some capacity in the elementary schools. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Anybody else? Yes, Mrs. Cabral.
I just want to add one more thing, I don't think that we're not interested in what the students want to bring to us or what their opinion is, what their concerns are. My concern with that role is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it is not appointed by the students. And I think it's important if you're to represent the students, then you should be voted in by your peers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cabral. Seeing no more discussion, the motion on the floor is to approve the first reading of the new policy JIBB, student member of the school committee, as recommended by the policy subcommittee. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No.
The The nays have it, the motion fails at this time. On to the next item on the agenda, E. Here we go. To approve the first reading of revised and recoded policy HE, School Committee Negotiating Agents to HF, School Committee Negotiating Agents as recommended by the Policy Subcommittee. So just to clarify before I ask for the motion, this is some content change as well as a code change.
It's just a rearrangement of the sentence because it started with a preposition.
A grammatical
Sorry,
content
a
change.
grammatical content.
So could I have a motion to approve the first reading of the revised and recoded policy HE?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Next, I'm looking for a motion to approve the first reading of policy JHC, Student Health Services and Requirements, which includes content from policy GCEB.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Next, I'm looking for a motion to approve the revision, renaming, and recoding of policy GDA, support staff positions, to policy GD, support staff, and the removal of policy GD, support staff, as recommended by the Policy Subcommittee.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
I have one question. It's a grammatical question.
Sure.
Why are the lines crossed out on it's a repeated statement? And they're crossed out on the bottom, but they're in that paragraph?
It's because the way Word does
Okay.
tracking, I wanted to cut that paragraph and paste it into.
Okay, that was my only question. Okay.
Okay. Let me cut and paste it.
All right.
The only way Word would allow me to do it.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I have something.
Yes, Mrs. Bullard.
I would like to make sure that the gendered language is removed. It says that he'll be shown his contract or
Mhm.
whatever that last line is.
I thought I caught all of those.
Yeah.
What line is it?
Last line.
Oh, yeah. Their job
So change that to
description.
there. Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Now I will jump back to an item that was removed from consent agenda. That was item C5. I want to remind everybody for the next 3 agenda items, they are about contracts, so there is no discussion. Legally, there is no discussion of personnel in public, so we will simply take a vote. So all in favor of approving the administrative contract for the Director of Facilities as recommended by Personnel Subcommittee? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I believe we can do better.
No discussion, Mrs. McBride. Thank you.
Taking pages on it.
Next item on the agenda is H. And again, no discussion, this is purely a vote. To approve the new shift supervisor contract as recommended by the Personnel Subcommittee. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
He's not here, but our new shift supervisor will be Anton Almeida, known as Tony Almeida, who is one of our current maintenance folks who will be promoted to this position as of July 1.
Congratulations, Mr. Almeida. The next item on our agenda, please can I have a motion to approve the new CFO, Director of Finance and Administration contract as recommended by the Personnel Subcommittee?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries.
Hallelujah. I would love to introduce Danielle. Do you mind coming to the podium?
Hello. I just want to thank the school committee and Superintendent Riley for this amazing opportunity. the interview process gave me a great insight into what you guys are looking for in this community, and I really am glad to be a part of the team. I look forward to working alongside each and every one of you. I'm very excited to get started, start working, and hopefully give you all the information and resources that you need to make the best decision. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome on board. Congratulations. We're all very happy to have you.
Yes.
Especially me. Especially Superintendent Riley. The last item on the agenda is item J. Please, can I have a motion to approve the secure storage notification resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, you asked me about this a couple of years ago. I think that if I had my druthers, people wouldn't have guns, but I don't have my druthers. So I vote for people who believe the same way I do. But that doesn't mean that I reach into people's houses to tell them what to do in their homes. I believe that that's the responsibility of the state and the federal government. And I don't think that we should be messing around with this other than to strongly support and work with, if so asked, our police departments, our town councils, our state, and our federal reps. We're not about the business of having people sign and notice things that have no teeth and don't have really anything to do with reading and writing and mathematics. So I have to vote no on it, because as much as I agree that guns are a terrible thing and they shouldn't be here, and I don't want them here, this is something that's not in our purview.
Mrs. McBride, I just want to clarify one thing, because this was a falsehood that was spread through some people throughout the community, and it's dangerous because it's a fake rumor. There is nothing on here about anyone going into anybody's home. There is nothing on here about collecting signatures from anybody. This is purely in the same way that we remind parents that they should lock up their prescription medication to keep the kids safe. In the same way that we suggest to parents that they should remove phones during dinner, it is about creating healthy, safe environments for our students. There is nothing on here about the school district having any interest in going into anybody's home.
And if you notice what I've had discussions about and mentioned about in the past, is that when we go into the home by saying this is what you need to do in your house, I think we are overstepping our bounds. So I happen to think we're overstepping our bounds on how much you use the computer or your telephone. It stops. It has to stop. It's the purview of our state government, of our local government, and of our police departments, who really know. Would I like to work with them on that? Absolutely. But I'm not going to send this out. It says that we have to send letters out in English and Spanish. It says that we will update the student handbook. So that's actually physically changing something that we hand out. So that's certainly going into the schools. And I don't know if it's still a rule, but it used to be that parents had to sign off on handbooks to say that they had read them. So that's going a little bit too far in my estimation. So I suggest that we communicate just like we did the last time, the last meeting when they came and talked about drugs. It was very interesting, very provocative. We learned a lot about what our students were doing. I'd like to see something like that. And I'd like to see us reach out to our police departments and work on some way to be helpful with that. But to just do this resolution, no.
Mrs. Reish?
I just wanted to comment that we, as a community and as a school committee, or as the school committee, it's our responsibility, in my opinion, to protect our students. We spend tons of time and tons of money putting in safe vestibules, having buzz systems, having active shooter drills, and those are things that are required. This is something that we're purely suggesting to families as a safe way to store firearms to protect our students. And I think at the end of the day, just making suggestions and asking people to read some information and maybe think twice about how they operate or store firearms in their home will potentially save lives within our town. And I think that's very much worthwhile and important.
Thank you, Mrs. Reach. Mrs. Almeida.
I am obviously for safety of any kind. This is not for or against the actual weapon, but safety, whether that's this, prescription drugs, alcohol, whatever it may be. But I would just like to make a suggestion, and I know it would have to depend on his schedule as well, but maybe some time down the line, our own chief of police could come in and actually talk about this. I know he was occupied today, but I know hearing maybe an important message about safety coming directly from our police departments that we have in both towns, just to provide information, I don't think that can do any harm. Thank you.
I'll just say I did reach out to both chiefs to make sure they were in support of this, and both chiefs were. And I think Mrs. Martini mentioned that actually Chief Lynch testified on behalf of this legislation. So I do try to do that whenever we have something that involves a recommendation like this. I try to go to both chiefs ahead of time to know that. I'm sure he would be happy to do a presentation if we asked him, but I'm just letting you know that I did check in with both.
That was the first step, yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs. Thibodeau.
Madam Chair, originally when I read this, of course, I went to Overreach and I was kind of like, is this our purview? But then this weekend, I had the opportunity to speak to gun owners. I was able to speak to somebody who actually owned a gun shop, and people who are actually also testifying at the State House for the safe and secure guns legislation that they're proposing. So I actually learned that there is a need to get communication out. There are families, there are people who purchase guns legally who may not necessarily know what is the best way to store your ammunition and your guns. That is true. That being said, I feel that I had a couple of questions on the language that would be used. Would it be informative? Would it be, because if you look up the state law, it's very ambiguous. There is really no state law at the current moment. They're working on it, as has been stated today. I would suggest that we put this on hold until we have actual language that we can agree upon, because right now, all the law says is that there are consequences if a child is hurt or if there is injury. There's actually nothing that states that this is how you need to store your guns. And I want this to be something that's actually useful. Like, I agree that, to be honest with you, I did not know. Like, if you get a blue card, you have to know, they teach you that you have to store your ammunition here and your guns here. But if you just buy a rifle, because you don't need a blue card, you don't get that information. So there's definitely a need, just like fentanyl laced in the marijuana these days. That we have tons of children dying in our community, opioid overdose. So again, I feel that that's something that we need to get that information out to the students, to the families. These are all extremely important. So I don't think that we are at a point where we can make this policy actually work or be effective, because we just don't have we don't know what the current language is going to be right now. We don't even know what we're going to be telling parents, what we're advising them on, because that hasn't even been set by the state yet. So I would like to wait until there's actually information, a law, and it's just not commentary, because we want to give them the right information. What if the schools at some point they say, let's provide safety locks. We work with the police departments. There are actions that we can do. There are steps that we can take to make our schools safer. Nobody wants to advocate for unsafe circumstances, but let's do it the right way.
Thank you, Mrs. Thibodeau. Mrs. Bullard?
I am so truly shocked that anyone could sit up here and say, let's just wait a bit. There have been more mass shootings in this country than days this year. Children cannot learn to read and write and do mathematics if they are dead. This is something that as a committee, we can say we care about the safety of children. I do not understand saying it's not going into anyone's home. It's not enforceable. But if one person sees it and thinks, oh no, I better store my ammunition separately. If one person sees that, that's enough. And
No,
we don't
it's
have
not
to know
enough.
the law. We don't have to know the law.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't. Not for this resolution. If you're not going to listen to Chief Lynch and the Chief of Warren Police, whose name is escaping me right now, I'm sorry.
Sergeant, Chief Borges.
If you're not going to, these are the experts that you're saying, we can bring the experts in. The experts have spoken. The experts have already said, this is a good idea. I cannot understand this amorphous idea of, ooh, we're going into people's homes. I cannot understand that. It makes no sense. You want to measure that up against a child life or 10 children? That's insane to me.
Well, your drama is not particularly appreciated either. So just
Thank you,
hold
Mrs.
it.
McBride. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair,
Mr. McGovern.
can I move to amend and just add Portuguese in with handing something out to Spanish and English?
Sounds good.
Yes, can I have a second for that
A
amendment?
second.
Any further discussion or any discussion on the amended motion? Great, so all in favor?
Wait, can I ask one? Sorry,
Yes.
because Sarah actually made me think. So I'm very curious on what the language actually is that we're approving. So what language, because it just says that an appropriate letter will be created. What, can somebody just tell me what that appropriate letter would be? What that language would say?
So we send a welcome back to school letter that includes lots of information, one of which is advice, one is keep safe storage of your prescription drugs. So we would add whatever language gets approved in the legislation. If no legislation is approved, we will still just write the generic recommendation of, if you own ammunition and firearms, please keep them in a locked safe or area where children do not have access. So we'll use the language. I'll get a recommendation from Chief Lynch, and it'll just be a part of the blurb on
But there's
all of the things we do.
But we're creating something that we don't. Personally, I would rather have a letter or some kind of a recommendation, like something before me that I can say from the experts that tells me this is what's going to be, this is what you should write.
Right, so that's what we'll do, but like, for
Or
example, we don't tell people how, where, when to store their prescription drugs. We just say they should be stored away from children. So I'm thinking it would be similar, but we certainly can get, the right language from the chief. But we don't specify the how. We just recommend they lock them away.
Yeah, I just
And
feel
we
this
don't
is too
vote on
I feel
content
it's
of
too
the student
ambiguous.
handbooks.
I just feel this is ambiguous.
Okay,
Yeah.
everybody has heard, we have a motion on the table, which we have
We have an
an
amendment.
amendment on the table, which is to add Portuguese. Do we vote on the amendment first?
Yes.
All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Okay, so now we go back to the original motion to approve the secure storage notification resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Yes, I'm opposed.
2 opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. With that, can I please have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for your patience in being here.